Well, this is the third go at stories for Valentine's. I'm just going to do a few idea I had about looking at Finn McCool's love life. You know, we hear about how brave Finn McCool was, about how clever he was. After all, he licked that, he took to salmon, he got all the knowledge of the day after that salmon that he got involved in. He could fool giants, like the giant from Scotland. But what about his love life? Did you ever think about that? And you know, when you read into it, he had actually quite an active love life. And I know that the Fionn were renowned for their prowess with the women. But Finn McCool himself now, he had quite a few. So the first one we know of was Sive. And Sive was beautiful. But he found, what happened was they were out hunting one day and they found this beautiful fawn. And the dogs were chasing the fawn, and the fawn just lay down and watched them, and the dogs just stopped. They didn't try to attack the fawn, they protected the fawn from the other dogs. When Finn came along, when him and the men looked at this beautiful fawn, they decided they couldn't kill it. So they headed for home instead, with nothing to eat, but they headed home. And the fawn followed them, and she managed to follow Finn right to his abode, his shelter, and he took her in because she was such a gentle little fawn. She looked so young and so innocent and so beautiful, and fawns do look beautiful. So he went to bed eventually when they'd finished all their feasting and drinking, and about 3 o'clock in the morning he woke, and standing by what he was lying on, his mattress, was this beautiful woman, because you know all these women in these stories are beautiful. And she was very tall, and she had long blonde hair, and she had a beautiful velvet gown. And she said to Finn, I was being persecuted to marry the dark druid, and I wouldn't marry him, so he turned me into a fawn. But one day I met a manservant of the druid, and he told me if I could find the protection of Finn McCool and Fionn, that I could go back, I'd be turned back into my human form. Well, Finn said he would protect her, and he fell in love with her. He fell so in love with her, he didn't go hunting anymore. He didn't go fighting. And they lived in this that little period of honeymoon where everything's wonderful. It was all going great. And then one day, they had to go to war. Finn and the Fionn were called on to defend Ireland, and off they went. And they were away for 7 days. And while they were away, she missed him. Sive missed him terribly. And about day 5, this vision appeared at the front of the fort, and it looked like Finn and his dogs. And she went running out, and people in the fort said, no, don't go, because they thought it could be a trick. And nothing would hold her back from this love that she had for Finn. She charged out of the fort into his arms, and he immediately turned back into the dark druid. And he lifted his arm, and in it he had a wand, and turned her right back into a fawn. And she tried to go back to the fort, but the dogs wouldn't let her. The dogs pulled her away. And she wasn't seen or heard of. And Finn and his men went searching. They searched and searched and searched. And after 7 years, they were out hunting one day. And they found a little boy, and he had no clothes on, and he looked very dishevelled, and he couldn't speak. And they took him home with them, and Finn decided he would look after him. And Finn kept thinking there was something very familiar about this boy. And as he learned to speak, he told them that he'd been looked after by a fawn, and Finn knew that this was his son. So he grew up, and he called him Oisín, and Oisín grew up to be a wonderful warrior, a poet, and a romantic. And there's loads of stories about Oisín. But that was Finn's first love. So life goes on, and eventually he got used to not having any love in his life. And then he met Una. Now Una, I don't know much about how he met Una, but he met Una, and Una was a very grounded, sensible woman. I didn't see anything about her being beautiful, but she was grounded and sensible. So one day Finn was out hunting, and a Scottish giant came over, and he knocked on the door, big giant. And he said, I want to fight Finn. And she said, well, he's out hunting with the boys, so you can come in and sit down. And she said to me, I don't know why you've come, because Finn goes over there. He built that glen so he could hop over he could hop over and have a fight with you every now and again. He said, no, I want to fight with him now. So she thought and thought, and she'd had a baby. So she told him she had a baby, and the baby was in the settle, so it wasn't in a little cot, it was lying in a big settle, wrapped up in blankets. And the baby started to cry and cry and cry, really loud cry. And she gave him some cream, and she said, if you just put that in your finger and put it into his mouth, it'll settle him while I go and get the milk. There's a big cow out there I have to milk. So he put his hand in, and she was out, so he put his hand in and he rubbed the gums, and didn't the child bite him? And he screamed the place down, and she came back and she said, what are you making such a fuss about? Isn't he only a baby? He's a bear and he wouldn't harm you. Well, he did. Look at those teeth. And she said, well, he's only 5 weeks old. He can't be that bad. And he looked at him and he thought, he's 5 weeks old. Do you know, isn't he great? Do you want to hear about the birth? No, I don't want to hear about the birth. Well, the thing is, he's like his brother. He's going to be big. They're all actually bigger than Finn. There's 15 of them and they're all out hunting today, but should be coming back soon and you can have a fight. And he thought about the 15 that were bigger than Finn, and he thought about this child that had bit his hand. And he got up, he ran out the door and down the field and wasn't seen or heard of again. So there was Una protecting Finn. So she was a very good wife. Now Finn was getting a bit older by now, and he decided that he needed to get married again. So he was going to marry the King of Ireland's daughter. So he heads off, and I got this book, from, I think it was Jeremiah Curtin's book. I think, I'm just going to check. It was collected from County Donegal. And in this story, Finn is on his way to propose to the King of Ireland's daughter. And on the way, he sees a graveyard, and there's a big fight going on in the graveyard. So he goes in to see, can he help? And there was two families, and they wanted to bury, one of the families wanted to bury this guy, and the other family wouldn't let them have the grave, because people fight about graves, unless they gave him money. And they didn't have the money, so Finn gave them the money. So he thought, better get that man buried. And he walks on, and a while later, this man catches up with him. And he says, where are you going to, Finn? And Finn says, well, I'm going to the castle. I'm going to see the king and his daughter. And the man said, sure, I'll walk with you. And Finn said, well, I haven't got any money. And the man said, no, that's okay. I have money for both of us. Don't you worry about that. So off they go. And when they get to the castle, didn't the princess open the big gate of the castle and let them in? And she made some tea. And she said, my father's out now, but he'll be back soon. What is it you're here for? And Finn said, well, I want to marry you. And she looked at him and she thought, not a chance. So she says to him, well, the thing is, you can marry me, but I'm going to give you 3 tasks to do, and you have to pass them before I'll agree to marry you. So I said, okay. So the first task is that you have to take the comb out of my hair during the night without me knowing. So Finn and the man looked at each other and thought, yeah, we can do that. We'll do that, yeah. So they didn't even know where she was. So as nightfall came, she disappeared and they didn't know where. And they asked around the castle, and somebody told them, oh, she's down talking to the devil. So they went down to hell to have a chat with her. And there she was, chatting away to the devil. And Finn just reached over with his hand and got the comb out. She didn't even know it. So the next morning she comes down to breakfast thinking, he didn't do that. And he produces the comb. Well, she was fit to be tied. Oh, I'll have to make it harder then, won't I? Okay, so tonight you'll have to get the ring off my finger without me knowing. So the same thing happened. She disappears. During the night they go looking for her and find her chatting to the devil. And there's 2 of them now, so it was the other man managed to get the ring off the finger without her knowing, and he gave it to Finn. And the next morning she comes down and there's Finn saying, well, we've got the ring now, so we've only one more thing to do and then we'll be able to get married. And she thought, oh gosh, I'm going to have to make this really hard. And she said to him, you need to get my lip off while I'm talking to somebody tonight. So that's what happened. They went down to hell that night, and there she was chatting away, and they had a very sharp pair of scissors, and Finn just leaned forward and snatched the lip off. And she didn't know about that. She was really cross. And the next morning Finn said, so now we can get married. And she was so unhappy at the thoughts of having to marry Finn. So she said to him, okay, I will marry you on Friday. So now for some reason Finn took it into his head that if he beat her with a hazel stick, she would stop talking to the devil. And he did that. He went around the castle after her. She probably thought he was having fun. Anyway, when the day came for the wedding, she had a terrible accident. She fell from the battlements of the castle and she broke her neck and never got to marry Finn. Now, some people might think that the thoughts of being married to Finn might have made her feel she wanted to do that, but I have no evidence for that, as I say, I have no evidence. But she wasn't keen to marry him. So Finn thought he was a lot more attractive than he actually was. Okay, I'm going to stop it now. I'm going to do another one.